You already know what would help. You have known for months. Maybe you read it in a book, or a friend told you, or you watched a video exactly like this one and thought, yes, that is true. That is my problem. And then nothing changed. Not because you forgot it. You can still recite it. You could explain it to someone else tonight and sound wise about it. The knowledge is completely intact, and the behavior is completely untouched, and the distance between those two things is the strangest gap in human psychology. We treat this gap as a character flaw. We call it laziness, or weak willpower, or a discipline problem, and we go looking for more information to fix it. So we read another book, we save another video, we find a better explanation of the thing we already understood perfectly well the first time. And the gap does not close because the gap was never made of missing information. Adding more knowledge to a knowing problem you do not have is like adding water to a plant that is starving for light. Here is what almost nobody tells you. Knowing something and being able to do it are not 2 points on the same road, where enough knowing eventually turns into doing. They are 2 different systems, running on 2 different kinds of fuel, and information only ever feeds one of them. You can max out the first system for a decade, and the second one will not move an inch. That is not a personal failure, and it is not a flaw in your character. That is architecture. It is the same in almost everybody. And today we are going to take it apart properly. So here is exactly what you will have by the end of this. You will know the 3 reasons that good advice fails to convert into action, and you will be able to tell which of the 3 is holding your particular thing in place. You will understand why the most useful sounding advice is often the least usable, which is a distinction that changes what you go looking for. And you will have 3 specific moves that operate on the real cause instead of the symptom. Let us start with the most uncomfortable reason. Reason 1. Understanding something feels almost exactly like changing it. When an explanation lands cleanly, you get a small, real hit of relief. Something confusing just became clear, and clarity is genuinely pleasurable. Your brain registers that pleasure as progress, because for most of human history, working something out and acting on it happened within minutes of each other. Now they can be separated by years. So you finish the book feeling different, and you mistake the feeling of understanding your problem for the feeling of having started on it. Psychologists have a related idea called the fluency illusion. When information is presented smoothly and clearly, we consistently overestimate how well we could actually perform it. Watch someone do something difficult with real skill, and it looks simple, and that apparent simplicity registers as competence you now possess. The clearer the explanation, the more capable you feel, and the less likely you are to go and struggle through the awkward early attempts where the actual learning lives. Good teaching can quietly produce confident people who have never once done the thing. Reason 2, and this is the one people find genuinely surprising. You learn advice in one state, and you need it in a completely different one. You read about staying calm on a quiet Sunday morning, rested, coffee in hand, nothing demanding anything of you. You need that advice at 6 on a Wednesday evening, tired, hungry, with 3 things going wrong at once. Those are not the same person. The one who understood it is calm and unhurried. The one who requires it is flooded, and flooded people do not consult their notes. Knowledge is stored by the part of you that reflects. Behavior is run by the part of you that reacts. Under pressure, the reacting part moves first, and the reflecting part arrives afterwards to explain what happened, which is why you can watch yourself do the exact thing you promised not to do, narrating it accurately the entire time. You were not missing the insight in that moment. You had it, in full, word for word. It simply was not the system that happened to be driving, and insight sitting in the passenger seat does not get to steer the car. Reason 3, and this is the one that gets missed almost entirely. Whatever you are currently doing is already solving something. The scrolling is managing a discomfort you have not named. The snapping releases a pressure that has nowhere else to go. The staying late is protecting you from something waiting at home. These are not random malfunctions. They are working solutions, badly priced but genuinely functional, and advice arrives asking you to hand over something that reliably works right now for something that is still entirely theoretical. Put in those terms, the refusal starts to look less like weakness and much more like ordinary caution. Now here is the thing that everything so far has been building toward, and once you see it, you will not be able to stop seeing it. You do not actually have the advice, you have a summary of it. Be more present, set better boundaries, stop caring what people think. Every one of those is a conclusion, and a conclusion is what somebody arrived at after doing the difficult work. They handed you the destination and quietly kept the route. And you have been standing there trying to install somebody else's ending as though it were a beginning. Think about how strange this is anywhere else. Nobody hands you a photograph of a finished cake and calls it a recipe. Nobody gives you the summit and calls it a route up the mountain. But in the entire field of personal advice, we do this constantly, and then we are puzzled when people fail to act. Set better boundaries is not an instruction, it is a description of somebody who already has them. There is no first step anywhere inside that sentence, and behavior only ever starts at a first step, which means the question you have been asking is the wrong one. You keep asking, why can I not make myself do this? The better question is, what exactly would I physically do in the next 10 minutes if I were doing it? If you cannot answer that in concrete terms, with a specific action a stranger could watch you perform, you do not have a discipline problem at all. You have an instruction problem, and no amount of willpower has ever compensated for an instruction that does not exist. Let me make that concrete. Consider a man who knows more about sleep than his own doctor. He can explain circadian rhythm and light exposure and why the phone in bed is the worst possible choice. He has read 3 books on it. He goes to bed at 1 in the morning, phone in hand, every single night. He does not need another book. He needs to know what to do at 11:15, standing in his kitchen when the day has finally gone quiet and he does not want it to end yet. Now, the fair objection. Sometimes people simply do the hard thing without any of this, and we call that discipline, and it plainly exists. That is true, but look closely at anyone who appears to run on pure discipline, and you will nearly always find structure underneath it. A fixed time, a set place, a person expecting them, equipment already laid out the night before. What looks from the outside like superior willpower is very often a superior arrangement instead. Something built once, quietly, on an ordinary afternoon, and then never leaned upon again. They are not stronger than you in the moment. They simply arranged never to need to be. So here is what to actually do. First, convert every conclusion into a first physical action. Take the advice you have been failing to follow and rewrite it as something a stranger could watch you do. Be more present becomes put the phone in a drawer before dinner. Set boundaries becomes send this specific message to this specific person by Friday. If the rewrite turns out to be difficult, that difficulty is the entire diagnosis, and it is worth sitting with. You were never actually avoiding the work at all. You simply never had a usable description of what the work was. Second, attach that action to something that already happens, instead of to your intention. Intention is not stable across states, but your existing routine is. You already boil the kettle. You already lock the front door. You already put the children to bed. Fasten the new behavior to one of those fixed points, so that arriving at it does not require you to be motivated or rested, or in a particularly good mood that evening. The cue does the remembering on your behalf, which means that you no longer have to do it yourself, and remembering was always the expensive part. Third, lower it until it survives a bad day. Almost everyone designs their new behavior for their best self, the rested and optimistic version, and then abandons it on the first difficult evening. Build it for your worst state instead. Not the 40-minute session, the 4-minute one. Not the honest conversation, the single sentence. It will feel almost embarrassingly small when you first write it down, and that smallness is precisely the point, rather than a compromise. A behavior that quietly survives your worst week is the only kind that ever gets the chance to compound, and compounding is where all of the results actually live. So, to gather it together, you are not failing to act because you lack information, and adding more of it will not help. Understanding gives you the relief of progress without any of the movement. The advice was learned in a state you are never in when you need it. And what you already do is quietly solving something the advice ignores. And most of what you were given was a conclusion, not an instruction. Turn it into a first action. Tie it to something fixed, and make it small enough to survive you. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, the psychology that explains what people actually do rather than what they are told they should do, everything we cover here goes out in longer written form as well. You will find all of that writing over at minddecoded.com, and you can join the newsletter there to get each new piece as soon as it lands. It is completely free, there is nothing waiting behind it, and the link is sitting in the description just below this video. And if this changed how you think about your own stuck thing, then stay with us. Subscribe to Mind Decoded, where every week we decode the psychology most people never stop to examine. Next time, we are looking at why being told you are wrong feels so much like being attacked. Before you go, take the one piece of advice you have been carrying around the longest and write down in plain words what you would physically do in the next 10 minutes. That single sentence tends to move things. See you in the next one.